Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our web talk show. This is regarding the mental wellness of students. And we have our guest today, Sri Lakshmi Pingali. Dr. Sri Lakshmi Pingali has been a psychiatrist for a very long time, and she's working with Gandhi Medical Hospital. And she's also working as part of the Roshni initiative. We'll ask ma'am to give a quick introduction about herself, and then we'll start the call. Ma'am, over to you, please.
Yes. So I'm Dr. Sri Lakshmi, as he said, and I'm an associate professor of psychiatry in Gandhi in Secunderabad, and I'm also the consultant psychiatrist with Roshni Counseling Center. And psychiatrists are medical doctors who do an MBBS and then an MD in psychiatry. And people like me are equipped to deal with mental illnesses when you come. So we treat them with limited counseling, but more with medicines. That's about me.
Thank you, ma'am. In fact, this reminds me about a recent news that we've seen yesterday. This is today's also International Drug Addiction Relieving Day, as well as there's a disturbing news that we have seen yesterday about a 16-year-old who has committed suicide, and she's a superstar on TikTok. I'm sure you all would have seen that news. It is so disheartening to see that at quite an young age, someone has decided to take her life in spite of having millions of followers. So I'm just trying to get your view on how do youngsters differentiate between the real world versus the unreal virtual world and the follow-ups, because this is too alarming and disturbing, as many of our participants would also be agreeing with me that in spite of having so many friends on the internet, so many online friends, all of these youngsters still feel alone, still feel lonely. So how can we address this? What are your thoughts on this?
Yes. So first of all, let us understand that more than this, I think the focus should be on the fact that she has committed suicide at such a young age. And this is following a spate of suicides that have happened in the last few weeks, all very highly accomplished people with lots of fan following, people they are very well loved, no matter what the age group. Now, from this you understand that fame and glory and money is not a buffer against suicide. So let's be very clear about that. Anybody who has a susceptibility or who has such severe stress has a risk of committing suicide. A little later in the talk, possibly I'll tell you who has higher risks for committing suicide. But before that, I would also like you to understand that having a lot of friends online is a good thing. What happens online is whenever you put up a picture or a post, you start counting the number of likes that you have, and each like gives you a kind of a high and you're feeling very happy about it. And when you do not get that, when you do not get those likes, or you do not get what you feel is necessary to get at that time, I should have gotten better likes or whatever, that makes you feel very, what should I say, very low and very depressed, or that you feel that you are not good enough. So when you hang your self-esteem on the likes you get on social media, life becomes very tough. So let us understand, having a true friend is somebody you can share with, talk to, and tell your innermost feelings without the fear of being judged. This is unlikely on social media because all of us, including myself, want to put on only the best face on social media. We will not put up our crying pictures. We will not put up our sad stories. We will not put up our failures. We only put up our successes and we get likes, and we feel so good or grand about it. So please understand, virtual world is not equal to the real world. Have a friend in real life. You may be contacting this friend over the phone, or you may be contacting this friend online, but there should be at least one or two friends whom you can share completely and confidently. This friend can be your parent also. This friend can be your sibling also. This can be your schoolmate or a neighbor. Or if you have nobody to share, even your diary can become your best friend, where you can write your problems and tell all about it in your diary, a virtual or a real diary, so that at least your emotions are out. Now, if it's good to be on social media, everybody is on social media, you cannot escape that. But social media does not define you. Just because you got 10 likes and your friend got 100 likes, your friend does not become a better person than you. So the basic values of a human being are not displayed on social media. It is only the good and attractive parts of you that are being liked, and that does not define you completely as a human being. Please be aware of that. It's only a part of you, and it does not define you completely. You're much more than your social media image.
Thank you, ma'am. That makes a lot of sense. And while you're also talking about this, you're talking about maintaining a diary or writing down our emotions. And I want to remind our participants that our initiative here can act as their diary where they can write to us if they would want to talk to someone, if they're seeking some advice. And that reminds me of the emails that you have got that would want your suggestions today. I'm just reading to our first email.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kaushik from Unify. All of the college students know me, and Madam, this is Kaushik, the radio operations chief. And I just want all you to know that Ashokan sir has lost his internet connection as well as the power. We know, as he was saying in the starting of the call. So, Madam, I request you to please continue with the call. I request also the students to put up your messages or whatever the things privately to Madam, or you can also send the message here, and Madam will be discussing about the doubts and the problems you have. In the meanwhile, we will figure out a problem and a way to connect Ashok sir, and we will read out the email. So, guys, I request you to come up with the messages. Uh, we are really sorry for the inconvenience caused, Madam, and students.
That's okay, Kaushik. I think since we started on a very important topic of suicide, I would like to continue telling the students so that since it's reaching a lot of them, till that time, maybe the students can think of putting up questions to me. Not to worry, I'm not going to read out any names. I just need your queries so that I can, I answer them and it reaches out to more of your friends. No answer is stupid. No question is stupid. No question is simple. No question is unnecessary. Every question is important because mental health is not understood by everybody. So, are you able to hear me? Somebody says, "How can I hear your voice?" I'm not sure whether you're able to hear me now.
Yeah, I just want, please, guys, can everyone hear to Madam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think there is a problem with Shruti internet, Madam. You can
Okay.
continue, and that was a very good thing that was going on in the discussion. I want you to continue with that.
Yes, yes. Then I'll read out one of the questions that came to me a little later. But let's first discuss about suicide. Now, whenever you talk of suicide, suicide is an act of taking one's own life. Okay. The two kinds of suicide that we're talking about. One is called a suicidal gesture. That is, you are wanting to, you're wanting help. For example, you're having a lot of difficulty studying, your parents don't understand you, or you're having difficulty with friends and you have nobody to share with. You really don't want to die, but you feel that this may be the only method in which people will understand the kind of pain I'm in. So what will you do? You will make an act of either cutting your hands in public, or you will put your chungi around your neck and you will threaten suicide. Now these are not action, these are not acting, but this is a cry for help. This is called a parasuicidal gesture, as opposed to something which is a serious suicide. Serious suicide is when you have thought about it for various days and then you have planned it out nicely when nobody is there and then you attempt it. So this way what happens is this person has very less likely chances of being saved. How will you know that a person next to you or your friend is so bad, in such a bad shape, that they're about to commit suicide, or they're planning to commit suicide? You should know because you might be the one to save them. So let us take a few pointers. If this friend is very unhappy for the last few days, not sharing his problems with anybody, and is being very alone, okay, then you can suspect. Second, if they already have some member in the family who has already attempted or committed suicide, then this boy also or girl has a high risk of committing the same. If they have themselves attempted it in the past multiple times, then also the risk increases. When they start writing farewell notes, when they write a suicide note, or they give away their things and say, okay, this is the end, and they don't have any future plans, when you ask them, what about your future? They do not tell you any future plans. All of these are pointers towards a high risk suicide attempt. Okay. As a friend, what can you do? The most important thing is to ask a person if you're suspecting, Acha, are you thinking of death? Are you thinking of suicide? Many of us are afraid to ask such questions. We feel by asking this question, we've actually put the person's idea into the person's head. No, it is not so. In fact, what we're doing is a kind of relief to the patient, to the person, because at least they have somebody who understands them. So they are able to share their problem. Children, you also must know that we run a helpline, a suicide helpline called Roshni, numbers of which I will ask Mr. Ashoka to share with you. This is a confidential helpline. It's a voluntary helpline, which means no person working there is paid for it. And it is an NGO. And since it's a telephone, it can be accessible from all the parts of the country. Why is it done? Why is this helpline there? If the helpline is there with the belief that if you're getting a suicidal thought and you talk about it for some time, the thought goes away and you have some alternate plans in place. For example, we have many children calling us or students calling us and saying, I'm going to commit suicide right now. Then this counselor or befriender, as we call them, who is manning the helpline, keeps talking to you about your problems. And as you keep talking, you find alternate measures and you find alternate ways and say, oh, I've been so stupid. Why did I think I should commit suicide? Maybe I can try other methods in which to solve this problem. Maybe suicide is not an answer. So such kind of helplines are there throughout India. And in running from Hyderabad, working from Hyderabad is the Roshni helpline. So please avail it. It's not only for suicide. If you're having any mental health issue, you feel you cannot talk to anybody about that, and you are very stressed, you want to talk and share, and you don't want to tell your name, this is the best place to call. Okay. So please keep that in mind, and I'll share the numbers with you at the end. So when a friend who you suspect is very sad and is about to commit suicide or has attempted suicide, please ask. There is no harm in asking them. Second, you have to inform somebody who is more responsible than you. If you're of the same age, suppose you're 15 years old and your friend is also 15 years old, you can't help that friend, but you convince your friend and then talk to an elder in the position of responsibility. This may be your teacher, this may be your parent, her parents, and you get help, necessary help. Almost every college has a counselor as a backup. If their counselor is not visiting, they at least have somebody they can refer to. So make sure that your friend gets help that he or she needs. You will have actually saved a life. Do you know many people who actually attempt or commit suicide have met the doctor also in the last 48 hours, and they have never realized, and they never told the doctor, and the doctor did not ask these questions, and they have gone back home and attempted suicide. So it's so essential to ask when you suspect. Okay. One more question I was saying, I got a very interesting question from one child who says, let me read out that question to you so that it reaches to everybody, and I'm sure many of you are having the same problem. I don't talk or even open my mouth in front of relatives and family friends. I don't even prefer staying at that place. But on the other hand, when it comes to professional life or at college, at home, I'm a total extrovert. I can even take the lead to build a conversation. I don't know what type of person I am. I don't get it why I'm two poles apart. My relatives and family friends say I don't have a mouth, whereas all others say I have the biggest mouth. Can we help you out? Now, when you are like this, I want you to understand what is it that is harming you. Many of you may have this problem, right? Though in others, usually this person has said that he or she is more quiet in front of family members and very extroverted and very talkative in front of friends. There's no harm. There is no problem there at all. Okay, if where it is necessary for you to have a conversation, where you necessary to for your future jobs or future profession, fine, you're able to talk, that is enough. In relatives, you may have only one or two you're comfortable with and you want to talk. Absolutely, there is no harm. A person can be like this and like that also. But there are some people who cannot talk in front of relatives and who cannot talk in front of others also. There it becomes a problem. What is this problem? Let me discuss a little more in detail, so that you people understand that it is quite natural. Many of you can feel like that, right? Now, whenever you're supposing you're a very shy person and you cannot make friends easily, at home also, though you can talk, you're not really talkative. Then when you're suddenly asked to go up on stage, you start feeling very scared and trembling and say, I can't function. And then you get down the stage. So every seminar you have to present or any kind of talk you have to present, it becomes a torture for you. If you have to suddenly go into a group of friends who are talking and you suddenly, you come up to them, new people are standing and talking, you really feel like going and making friends with them, but you find that you're very shy and you feel, oh, they may judge me, they may think that I'm stupid, or they may not like me, and you hesitate going and mingling with them. So this becomes so dysfunctional for some children that they hardly talk outside, they can hardly make new friends, they can hardly come up on the stage in spite of being immensely talented. (17, 18) and goes on for a very long period in life. This is called social phobia. Afraid of being judged by society. Therefore, you rather not talk in front of everybody. So this kind of social phobia, or as we call it, the social anxiety disorder, is quite a common condition, occurs in boys quite frequently, occurs in the late teenage, occurs in girls also, and it is completely treatable. So when you are there, we have various methods or various means of treating this kind of anxiety, where you're not able to open your mouth in front of people, when you're afraid to mingle with other children, when you're afraid to make new friends, when you're afraid that you'll be judged wherever you go. So this can be treated. If it is very severe, we use medicines, but most times it is also done by a process called cognitive behavior therapy, or in common language, it is done by what is called as counseling. So many children go through this. Don't hide this problem. It is a solvable problem. Reach out and you will definitely be helped. Okay, so should I continue? There's a few other messages. Should I read out?
Yes, ma'am. I'm back on the call. Please go.
So there's somebody who says, I'm very sad and depressed. There are many problems in my family. Financial problems are there. And I'm not sure whether government will conduct the exams. I want to learn new skills, but I don't know what to do. I feel very sad. I wish I was a boy. At least I would have started something to help my dad. Give me a few advices on my career and motivate me. I had a virtual friend with whom I was very close, and just before the pandemic, we had a fight and we broke up. I know virtual relationships aren't real, but still, we were too open and real with each other. I was shocked when my friend said of ending one day. Okay, so for this child, so many problems came at once. It is very common. I'm sure many of you also have had similar problems, where breaking up with a close friend has happened, family financial issues have happened, not being able to study properly and therefore having backlogs have happened. What to do next? Everything is in a dilemma. So for all of you, let's understand how to solve when you are surrounded by problems. All of us are surrounded by problems now, right? We can't go out. We don't know what is happening to our jobs, what is going to happen to our exams. So let us categorize our stress or these problems into two categories. One which I can change and one which I cannot change. So let us talk about the ones we cannot change in this case. Can she do anything about the family finances? She cannot, because I suppose she's still a student who is not working yet. So she can't do much now. So is there any point in worrying? No. But what is the thing that what was the problem in this which she could have changed? She could have changed her what was the other thing she said about the studies, where she said that I have 2 backlogs. So instead of focusing energies on conditions that you cannot change, divert all your energies into the things that you can change. So if you are diverting your energies into studying properly, and then come whenever the exams happen, you are completely ready to give the exam and clear your backlog to your, because after that definitely you will probably get a job. So worrying about things that you cannot control, you cannot get a job now. Nobody is getting jobs. Even people who have jobs, many of them are losing it, right? So about worrying about your father's finances or about your inability to get a job to help him, I rather you focused all these energies into studying hard to overcome your backlogs. Because if worrying helps solve problems, I think you should keep worrying. But worrying has helped never nobody. It does not, your worrying will not solve your financial issues. Your worrying will not get you job. But if you worry enough and study hard enough, your backlogs will definitely be cleared. So focus on the things that you can change. And about this friend, virtual friendships are also quite real sometimes. People can be very good friends online also. And every breakup is hurtful. If a friend is suddenly stop talking to you, it is going to hurt. But it is going to hurt for some time, but you'll have to learn to overcome it also. No relationship should define you completely, right? Friendships, relationships form a little part of you. There's a lot to you. There's a lot to you as a human being. You have so many relations. You're a daughter, you're a sister, you are somebody's cousin, you're somebody's granddaughter. All these relations love you. So focus on the relations who love you rather than on the focus on the relations which are not working out. I'm sure with time, either this friendship itself will solve, or maybe with time you'll form new friends and you'll feel better. However, after all of this, you're not still feeling well and still feeling sad, please reach out to us and we'll help you. Ashoka Garu, I think I'm more or less done with the questions unless you want me to.
Still is struggling with the network there. In the meanwhile, you can also talk about the depression, and we also know some, due to this not outgoingness of the students in the social life, skills are also being killed. Like there are some people who will be showing up their singing, dancing and drawing skills on social media, and the others also want to do that, and again their insecurities come out and they stop doing it. So we can also talk about on that, and in the meanwhile I will check with Ashoka sir, or I will get the mail access so that we can read out the mails.
So lot of issues your children, some children have written earlier also to Mr. Ashoka and he shared with me. So one such problem also was similar, that my father has problems, my mother has problems, I am worried because they are fighting in the house because of me and things like that. So for all children, I have this one advice. Parents fight, adults have their own issues, they have their own stresses, and they're going to fight because they have to live their lives, they know best. And I'll repeat my advice. Worry about things that you can change. Worry about the things that are in your control. Can you control your parents and ask them to not fight? You cannot do that, right? But can you worry and improve your marks or improve your working and do better certificate courses that you get better jobs? Of course you can. So focus on the things that you can do. Focus all your energies on things that will help you achieve in life. Okay. Now let's come to also one more anxiety. We have now talked of social phobia. So since we are not having internet issues, I'll dedicate this entire segment to various kinds of anxiety problems that you may get during this age. So I'm presuming that most of you who are logged in are between the ages of 15 and above. So we've talked of social phobia, where you're afraid to open up in a group of friends or talk to them and feel very shy, and this impairs a lot of your functionality. There's another kind of anxiety where a person has something called a panic attack. Again, this can start at this age. What is this panic attacks? They will suddenly get palpitation of the heart. Palpitations means heartbeat will increase. They will get sweating. Their hands and legs will go cold. They will feel urgently they have to go to the toilet. Okay, they will feel I'm going to die. I have to open all the windows, otherwise fresh air will not come in and I cannot take a deep breath. They feel their chest has been compressed and it's feeling very heavy. This will last for about 5 to 10 minutes, so severe that they feel that they're really gotten a heart attack. This is what we call as a panic attack. what is a panic attack? An extreme form of anxiety. I'm sure many of you just before an exam may have felt this the night before, especially if you have not slept the entire night before when you were supposed to study. And when you're supposed to be sleeping, you spend the entire night studying, you feel you're not properly prepared. This kind of attack can come. Okay, it can happen when you're sleeping, it can happen when you're awake, and it can happen when you're about to deliver a lecture in a class. It can happen when you are partying with your friends. So it can happen unexpectedly many times. So when it continuously occurs, each time it lasts only for 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes is so bad that the person becomes completely exhausted, wrung out by the time the episode is over. And every time it is over, they will start worrying that will I get another attack again? Am I going to suffer this again? As a result, what will they do? They will stop going outside. They will not go anywhere without their friends. They will not go to a movie. They'll feel if I sit in a movie hall and if I get this kind of attack, who's going to help me? Okay. So they stop going to the movie. They will stop going to the market. They will stop going to any exhibition. So this child or adult is ultimately bound to the house and prefers to stay indoors where they are safe. Even staying indoors, they'll want somebody with them who can protect them. So this is a typical presentation. It can happen in many ways, but this is one particular, this entire episode or entire disease process is called a panic disorder. Like that was a social phobia. This is called a panic disorder. If you or anybody close to you suffers from this, please understand it's a treatable condition. It is nothing to do with the heart. But of course, every time you get this attack, the first time at least we send you to a cardiologist to ensure that your heart is safe. Okay. And rule out other conditions which may be causing it. And then we treat you for the panic disorder. I have so many patients your age, 17, 18, 19, who have felt that they are going to die because of getting a heart attack, or whether they are not able to function properly because they're getting these attacks. They stop going to college because they're afraid they might get an attack on the way. And slowly they become homebound. Such children are absolutely treatable. We treat them with both medicine as well as with counseling. Okay, so I hope I'm clear. We have talked of two kinds of anxiety disorders here. One, which is a social anxiety, where person is afraid of social situations only. And another is an anxiety which comes as an attack, doesn't have any rhyme or reason why it's happening, but it keeps on coming. This is called a panic disorder. Both of them are biological conditions, which means some chemical in the brain is not functioning properly, some wiring in the brain is not connected properly. Because of this disconnect, these kind of symptoms can happen. Neither of them is called pagal or mad. It is simply an anxiety disorder, which is completely treatable. Okay. So I have another question. Let me read out to you. I always feel anxious when I have to start a work, though I know that I can do it. I feel anxious. I'm sure many of you have that, isn't it? Performance anxiety. You get person who's doing badly will be feeling anxious that I will not get good marks, or a person who's doing very well will always feel anxious that I am not going to get 100 on 100 like I did last time. Kuch bhi karo pareshani. Either you get less marks, you are anxious. If you're getting more marks also, you are anxious. Does everybody feel like that? No. Only some people who are prone to anxiety will feel like that. If you ask me, blessed are those people जिनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Marks आया ठीक है, I studied, I got my marks, that's fine. Let's face the next exam. Okay, these are lucky people because they will face everything in life like that only. Everything is a challenge. Okay, let me take up the challenge and do it. Not too much anxiety is involved there. Okay, so but is being too laid back and cool also a good thing? No, that also is not a good thing. So anxiety should be there to an extent that it increases your performance. That is the good part of anxiety. Thoda dar zaruri hai. Okay, once you are a little afraid, a little anxious, you will study more, you'll concentrate more. Oh my god, I have 4 chapters left for tomorrow's exam, I have not studied, so let me study a little more karke. That anxiety that you feel, no, and because of which you are able to complete those 4 chapters before the exam, this is good. This kind of stress is necessary in life to function. If you're totally bindas and say koi fark nahi padta, that 4 chapters, there will be no marks, no questions will come, man, forget it. Then you will not study. If all the questions are from the 4 chapters, you'll fail also. So completely laid back is not good. Little bit of anxiety is good, but if that anxiety increases to an extent that you are not able to finish those 4 chapters, you're reading that chapter, reading again, all those lines you're reading, nothing is getting into your head. Why? Because head is full of anxiety. तो पढ़ाई कहाँ से जाएगा? There is no more place for your studies to get into your head, right? That is bad anxiety. So whenever anxiety is interfering in your ability to function properly, you're a singer, okay? थोड़ा बहुत anxiety से you'll do a very good performance. That is very good. But if your anxiety is so much that you go there and your voice starts to tremble or you forget the lyrics, then it is bad anxiety. So if your functionality increases because of anxiety, that much is enough. If you're feeling just that much, no problem at all. Okay, that means it's increasing your performance. But if you're feeling anxiety to an extent where your performance is reducing and you're not able to perform, that is a time when you have to stand back and ask yourself, why am I so anxious? Is this good anxiety or bad anxiety? Then now my anxiety has become so bad that I cannot function. Then I have to make ways and means to reduce anxiety. Lots of things can be done at your level to reduce anxiety. Let us take a few examples. What can you do? You can maintain a routine. Let me give you the example of a student just before the exam is getting extremely anxious. So in order to avoid that, you have to plan in advance. Okay? Achanak say you cannot control your anxiety just before the exam. So plan in advance in such a way that you have been doing all your revisions comfortably till the day of exam. The day of the exam, please have a good meal and have a good sleep, which is very important. When you sleep well, your memory also functions better the next morning. If you're a person who gets tensed at little things, open the YouTube and learn a beginner's yoga or pranayama. That also helps to control your levels of anxiety. These are small things that you can do for yourself. Have a good meal, have a healthy diet, not too much of junk food, not too much of colas or tea or coffee just before the exam. That also will play with your brain. Okay. Once you're done all this, but yet anxiety is still very bad. You're not able to function at all. You're not able to study at all. Your marks are coming down because you're so anxious you cannot write. Not that you don't know. You know everything, but you're not able to write. Then also is a time that you reach out to us and let people like me help you, me or any other psychiatrist around you, to help you to understand your source of anxiety and see if there are any other methods by which we can reduce your anxiety. Okay. Now, okay. There is one more very interesting question. So there's one child who's written to me, and very typically what we just discussed, and I'll read out her question to you. I get cold feet and hands get cold, and my body shivers when I sleep. And it has happened to me 2 times. First one was during my 10th board exam, but I was all right the next day, and I could write the exam. The second time was in my 3rd year, and even could not write the last 2 exams. Is anything wrong with me? Like we've just discussed, if your anxiety is gone to an extent where you're not able to write your exam, you have to take help of a mental health professional. Meet a psychologist or a counselor nearby you. If they feel the need for a psychiatrist, they will send you. Don't fear the medication. Tablets are good if it helps you control your anxiety. Do you know many famous personalities, before they go on stage, before they perform in front of camera, they actually take anxiety medication and do it. So don't feel any shame for what is a normal medical condition. Okay. Okay. So the other question is also related. So let me read it out. My question is, will any kind of physical exercise or yoga help us to get rid of or control of anxiety or anger? If yes, how long and with what precautions we should take it? So first of all, yoga helps. Any kind of physical activity will help. Why will it help? 2 things. One is it keeps your body physically fit. A physically healthy body definitely will also have a mentally healthy mind. First thing. When you're exercising or doing yoga, you're releasing feel-good chemicals in your blood called endorphins, which for that moment will make you feel a lot better. So these are 2 ways in which your physical activity can help. Generally recommended is 3 to 5 days of exercise, maybe about 45 minutes of exercise, but it is entirely up to your body type. Okay. But make sure that you do not have any physical health conditions which prevent exercise. Suppose you have a very bad knee and you've been asked not to do, say, jump squats, karo, mat karo, don't do jumping, don't do squats, then you should avoid. So if you are having any physical condition, which is a little unlikely at your age, then you have to take the advice of any coach. But if not, anything that will keep you motivated and do, you can do. You like to play squash, for example, or you like to play tennis, but you don't like to jog or walk. Do the tennis. That is also exercise. If you're a yoga person, but you cannot do cardio, do the yoga, no problem. If you don't like anything but you like to dance, go ahead and dance. Anything that you enjoy, you will do for a longer time. It is not about exercising how long, but being consistent in the way you exercise. The more consistently you exercise, the better It is for you because it keeps your body healthy, your mind fit, and your endorphins also are at a higher level. However, it is not the only thing to help your mental health. Please understand. This is as long as you're a mentally healthy person or you have occasional anxiety. If your anxiety is so severe that you're not even able to do that exercise, you're worried even during exercise, then you have to take medication. It is not going to help. Yoga is not going to help. Once you've taken the tablet, your body is fine and your mind is fine and you're able to focus better. Iske upar yoga karo na. Do yoga, you do exercise, you will be much better. Okay? Okay. And the next question is, I am working on a specific task. If I lose interest in it, even when I'm on the verge of winning, I stop it. What should I do? So you have to understand what is motivating you. Okay? What is your motivation? Is winning your motivation? Is a task well done well is your motivation? Find your motivation factors. If you are, and keep yourself motivated like that. You know how we do therapy? Suppose we want to change a child and make him want to do homework every day. We ask him what are his favorite things. Okay? Parents will tell us he likes to eat pizza or he likes to go for a movie in the weekend. So what we do, we make a chart. You can do it for yourself also for motivating yourself. You make a chart and say, of the 7 days, if I'm able to complete the task at least 6 days in a week, then I will treat myself to something at the end of the week. You've defined what is a treat. For the girls, you might want to buy something or go shopping, or you want to buy or you want to eat a pizza with friends or whatever. Keep one reward for yourself at the end of the week. Keep one structure for yourself the entire week and say, if I'm able to do 6 days out of 7 days, then I will reward myself. But if I did only 5 days and didn't do the other 2 days, so reward to gaya. Okay. This is usually done by parent, but since you're more adult, you can try it out yourself also, and that will keep you motivated. Also, this person who's asked me, why do I give it up just before I win? You have to ask yourself, are you afraid you're going to fail? You rather stop now and say, oh, I was very close to winning, but I didn't do it. Okay. And I didn't win it because I didn't do it. Is that an excuse you're telling yourself? Is it afraid? Are you afraid that you may actually lose if you actually try? Please find out. Ask yourself, analyze your thoughts, and you find out whether the anxieties that you may fail. That prevents a lot of people from trying whatever they want to in life. Okay. So ask yourself, and if the answer is that yes, I'm afraid that I will fail, then push yourself harder next time. There is nothing worse than not trying. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay not to try. Because you never know what potential you had, isn't it? Okay, so one more very important, very important question, and that comes to the third type of anxiety disorders I wanted to discuss with you today. Do you remember what we discussed the first two? First was social anxiety or social phobia, where you're afraid to talk to other people or in a public. Then was panic disorders, where you, without any reason, you got cold hands and feet, especially before exams. Okay, that was a panic disorder. And finally, I want to talk to you about something called an obsessive compulsive disorder. This is also an anxiety disorder, and this question is completely to that. Ma'am, I have so many thoughts in my head, that negative thoughts, it is like I'm a person fighting my own thoughts by myself. So what does this person say? I have so many thoughts in my head. I don't want these thoughts, but they keep coming to me, and I feel I'm always fighting with myself. This is a typical example of what we call as an obsessive compulsive disorder. Now let us understand what it is. It has two parts. One is obsession and one is compulsion. What is an obsession? When you get repetitive thoughts, you know these thoughts are of no use. You know that these thoughts are not going to help you at all, yet you're not able to control these thoughts. Okay. For example, I get a thought that my hands are dirty and I need to wash my hands. So what I do, I'll go and wash. Naturally, I'll wash it once and come back. After 10 minutes, again, I get this thought that my hands are dirty. Again, I will go and wash. Again, after 10 minutes, I get this thought. So in the entire day, possibly I'm spending 7 to 8 hours simply washing my hands again and again. I know it is not necessary. I know that what I'm doing is wrong. I know people are laughing at me. But if I stop washing my hands, my anxiety levels will peak and I will feel extremely scared. This is called an obsession. And you wash your hands is called a compulsion. Okay. Other children can get it like, did I switch off the gas? Is the front door locked? Should I go and check? So you go once and check. You find that the door is locked. You come back after 10 minutes, the same thought comes. You again have to go and check. Again, you come back. Like this, you do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times till you're satisfied that the door is locked or not. Okay? Let me give you an example of a child who had come to me, a teenager who was working in a bookstore. His thought was, whenever I leave the store will catch fire. He has no basis for thinking like that. Okay? So what would he do? This was before the era of cell phones. Okay? So what would he do? He would go out, he would lock up the store. He was the last person. He used to work there. He used to lock and take the keys with him. He used to walk up to the bus stop. By the time he walked to the bus stop, he would come back 3 times to check whether the store was locked or not. So, and he will maybe go home invariably. And from home, he will continuously call the landline of the store. Why would he call? His thought was, if the landline is ringing, that means the store is still standing and there is no fire. So whole night he would not sleep and he will keep on ringing. So do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? There are a lot of negative thoughts, all stupid, unreasonable thoughts. Makes no sense to you, to others also, and to you also. You also know it is nonsense. Okay, yet you cannot stop yourself. And therefore, what you're doing is fighting a battle with yourself. All the time you want to get rid of the thoughts, but you don't know how to get rid. This is called an obsessive compulsive disorder. Very commonly it starts at your age and definitely needs treatment. Very treatable. You know what is the average time a child comes to us saying that they have obsessive compulsive disorder or they suffered? It is 10 years. 10 years they would have suffered without telling anybody because they find it is so ridiculous to have such kind of symptoms. They find it shameful to have such kind of symptoms and they do not tell anybody. They keep on suffering, and then one day after 10 years or 20 years, they can't bear it anymore, and that is the time they'll burst out, tell other people, and that is the time they got to us. So much precious time is lost, isn't it? So many nerves which in the brain which could have been treated in the early stages and set properly, we no longer have time to do that. Now we have to give high dose medication, we have to give for longer time, and so many things will happen, right? So if you're finding any symptoms which are not normal or out of the ordinary, there is no harm in reaching out to ask, ma'am, are they normal or are they abnormal? And if they're abnormal, what can I do about it? There's no harm in asking. Please have no shame. If you know how common is obsessive compulsive disorder, if there are 10 people in the room, at least 1 or 2 will definitely have it. It's as common, but since nobody shares, nobody knows that the other person is suffering. So please keep that in mind. Okay? Okay, we have a few more messages. Let me read out here and see. So these are very, there are very similar kind of questions, both of them. Let me read out one after another. I'm very much interested to give seminars, but when I reach the dais, I'm not satisfied with what I've delivered. I have much more to say. Okay. And then but I can't, what to do? Then another person says that I feel everyone around me is better than me and I'm never good enough. And I try to become like everybody else and get confused. I feel like everyone hates me and I know deep down I'm overthinking and it isn't true, but I still can't put these negative thoughts out of my head. So let's cut these two and then another very interesting question. I will do that also. So both I think I've already answered, but let me just go back to it again. Whenever you are on whenever you're giving a presentation, you have to analyze, why are you not satisfied? Did you get nervous and could not do it properly? Were you not satisfied with the content of what you've spoken, or was your time not enough? If that other two is very simple, you don't even need a doctor to tell you. If it is because of the content or the time, you time yourself, practice and re-practice before you give the lecture. So you'll feel better. But if it is because you're feeling anxious, then do a little breathing exercises before you go onto the stage. Tell yourself, I know about this subject more than anybody else sitting in the hall. So anybody, because I have read the maximum about it here, this is the way I do it myself just many times. I know the maximum here. Nobody else knows better than me because I have studied, I've spent so many hours doing research on this topic. So I will know better than anybody. There is no harm. And another thing you have to tell yourself, suppose I can't answer the question, what happens will fall? If I'm cross-questioned or I didn't do a good presentation and I'm told that, you could do better, or that they asked me a question I could not answer, what will happen? You only say, okay, thank you, I'll read it and get back to you. There's no harm in saying that I don't know. There's no shame in saying I don't know. It makes you a better and a bigger person, that you're able to accept, go back, rectify and come. And in the long run, you're going to become an excellent speaker because you know where your faults lie. Then the other question which says that, I'm not able to, I feel nobody likes me. Are you going through social phobia? You have to ask yourself. Are you so conscious in front of people? You feel people don't like me, therefore I cannot open up, I cannot talk to people. You're being anxious. Please reach out to us. It is not normal to think like that. Why would you not be liked? Every person has their own specialities. You are as special as your neighbor. You're as special as your friend. Their friend may have certain qualities which you may not have, but you are a unique person. You have a lot of qualities which nobody else has. My suggestion, go back home today, write a list of your goods and bad qualities. See which is winning. Okay. And if in your list your good qualities have won and you're getting far more good qualities than bad, tell yourself, I am happy with myself. Okay. But if you find that you're not able to think any good of yourself, sirf bad hi bad likh rahe ho, nothing good is coming out, then definitely your thought process needs to be restructured. You need to meet a counselor, and then if necessary, the counselor will send you to a psychiatrist like me. Okay. To the next question. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thanks for your concern. We are strengthened emotionally with your words. Whatever I love does not stay with me, whether it be my dog or a person I like. I'm good at studies, have a good family, but these setbacks upset me. As an introvert, I can't express my feelings. Okay, so let us consider this person to. Is it true that only you lose things that you love? Don't we all lose things we love? All of us do. Okay, we all have pets we have loved. We all have relatives we have loved. We all have friends. And more than friends whom we have loved and lost. That is the way life is, isn't it? For you, it is, you're a good student. You say you come from a good family, and you are, you have so many good things happening for you. So it is, when you look around all the people that you love and are still staying with you. You may lose things that you love. Pets die, pets die. They have a 7-year lifespan, 10 years lifespan. We have a 65-year-old lifespan. So the pets are going to die in front of us, and we're going to have multiple pets in our lives. So that doesn't mean that everything I love is got taken away from me. You learn to live with the losses. You learn to appreciate what is around you. You also have written that I'm an introvert and I cannot express my feelings. So if you're not able to express it to another person, like I told you in the beginning of this talk, express it to a diary. Talk to a diary. Talk to a virtual friend. You make a virtual diary or a hard copy and write your feelings there. It's a very good outlet for your emotions. In the long run, hopefully you will have a steady friend or a spouse who you'll be able to share with, and that will make your burden a lot easier. Have you ever thought maybe a parent, one of your parents also could be a very good friend if you shared with them? So if you feel your wavelength is matching and your parents are understanding, try and express your feelings to them also. It might help you. Okay. Okay. So this is a very interesting question. It says, I think brain has such a complex mechanism and every machine has its own operational manual. Can you please discuss about how to control our mind and reprogram it as we wish? I wish it was so simple. It's so simple. It's a very, very interesting question. And I wonder if you're an engineer actually. So brain, only God has the operation manual. We don't have. We are still in the process of discovering how the brain works. You may want to read up books on various genetics or of psychiatry or mental disorders, or neurological disorders, where you will know the various interactions between various genetic factors, the environmental factors that play a role in the brain. So there is no one rule that applies to all. There are, however, therapies which are called cognitive restructuring or cognitive behavior therapy, where they will allow you to re-understand your negative thoughts and therefore change it. Now, let me give you a small example of what I mean by that. There was this gentleman who came to me and said, ma'am, I always have a lot of difficulty relaxing because whenever I relax, I hear my father's voice in my head that you're a useless fellow, you're not doing what you should be doing, and you're wasting your time. So I asked him, tell me a little about your father. So he says, my dad was very, very strict, and every time I sat down to study, if I lifted my head after 10 hours also, he would scold me with these words. So these days, whenever I relax, I did a lot of work online. I finished all my work and I'm just beginning to relax. My anxiety starts and my father's voice keeps on going on in my head. This was an ideal candidate for restructuring his brain. He said, I went to the mall. When I came out, I saw that one of my the car tires was punctured. Then also I started cursing myself, useless fellow, you don't even know how to drive a car. What can anybody do? Tires punctured to hote hai, gaadiyan kharab hoti hai. But in his head, he was responsible for everything negative. So we helped him with cognitive behavior therapy to reanalyze his thoughts And he then later learned to think that, chalo, things happen to everybody. These kind of things happen, doesn't matter. Okay, things will change, and I am not responsible for everything. And that helped him to relax to a very large extent. So this kind of reprogramming I can help you with, but operation manuals and all are beyond my capacity. Okay. Then there's one more very interesting question which we should discuss. I think after that Ashoka sir will have to tell us whether to continue. I can't concentrate after a certain point of time in class. I feel if I sit like that for just one more minute, I'm going to suffer. How to deal with it? I'm interested in it, but I cannot sit and listen for more than 40 minutes. 40 minutes is a very long time, my friend. There's no harm in if you're able to sit and listen for 40 minutes, it's a very big thing. Okay, some people cannot even sit for 10 minutes. So don't beat yourself up for that. But your question has given us a very good direction to answer one more question. One more disorder that all of you should be aware about is called an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Do you know what it is? Attention deficit means unable to pay attention for a long time. Hyperactivity means unable to sit at one place for a long time. Generally, it starts before the age of 12. So by the time you're in class 3, 4, lots of complaints go to your parents saying that this child is not sitting in one place in class, is daydreaming in class, or he or she is daydreaming in class. When everybody else in the class is sitting, you're cracking jokes, you're poking at your friends. I'm sure one or two fellows in your class will be like that. Teachers turn towards the blackboard and you're running around in the class. So, and so much so that you're actually not able to help yourself. Okay. And when you're trying to study, you'll find so many thoughts coming into your head, or you're drifting into another direction, you're daydreaming. So a lecture ho gaya, and you realize that you've heard only 10 minutes of it. The rest 30 minutes has gone off in a dream. And if it happens very frequently, so much so that you're starting to lose marks and you're not able to function properly. You're a brilliant student, but it is not coming out on paper because you're not able to pay enough attention even to solve the paper or solve the exam question. Then you may be suffering from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Also treatable, should have been treated very early in childhood, but it's not jab jago tabhi savera. So whenever you feel the need and you feel you may be having ADHD, please contact your doctor. This is a medical condition which needs to be treated. Do you know, I had a 20-year-old coming up with his father and said, doctor, from the last 10 years, I'm telling them I have a problem, that I'm not able to focus in class. I'm not able to sit still. My parents are not agreeing. I feel I have ADHD. Can you assess me and tell me whether it is true? We did an assessment, found out it would be true, treated him. Now he finished his MBA. Now he's working in a very good MNC. Okay. So, like I said, no harm. It is your generation which has to come out and tell us, look, I have problems and I need help. There is no harm. There is no harm. You are the smart generation and you will raise better children than we did, is what I feel. Okay. So I am asked to conclude after this question. So I hope all of you, I've been able to, there are a lot of other questions also, which what I feel is I will give you I'll ask Mr. Ashoka to give my personal email ID to you people also, if you would like. Write to me and I will try my best to answer your questions to whichever way possible, because 1 hour is a very short time to answer most of your queries. And I see many of them which need a lot more detailed answers from me, but we don't have the time. Okay. I hope I've reached out to many of you. I hope I have made it easier to understand what you're suffering from or what your friends or relatives are suffering from. We are there to help you. We are there to guide you. We are there to listen to you, but you have to reach out. I can't do that for you. So please reach out, seek help. Your mind is much as a part of you as your body is. And if it is suffering, there is something medically wrong in the brain. Get it treated like any other part of the body and lead a happy life. Okay? Thank you. Yeah, Kaushik, I'm done with the session.
Yeah, madam. Thank you, madam. Thanks for the wonderful session that you have taken today. And obviously, we know questions will be always be coming. And I think all of them are some way or the other related, which you have explained in the session in the continuous way. So thank you guys. Thanks for attending the session, and we can end the session now. And there will be also amazing sessions like this every day. So wait for us. We will be with an amazing session tomorrow. Thank you guys. Thank you, madam. Thanks for being with us and guiding us and our student community for a responsible future time. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.